it's such a cliche to say Happy New Year. I really don't know what happiness is. I really don't know what New Year is, really. If I knew, that would be something. But I really don't know. That's why I said 2 days ago that maybe all probably in a respectful manner, probably in a meaningful manner. It's strange to say rightful manner, but that maybe all grow old together, that maybe all should we fall ill, which we do, of course. Getting old is part of getting sick. Maybe do that together, and then maybe eventually come to the end of this lifespan also together. And should the conditions be there, of course we will also be reborn over and over again and go through all those processes again. And if that happens, maybe do that together too. Because I think for us to say that maybe always be smiling, laughing, or in a crude way that maybe all be crying together and brooding together is such a pressure. To laugh all the time is such a pressure. To cry all the time is such a pressure. If anybody understood anything about life, meaning from a Buddhist point of view, we have, strangely enough, some sort of an idol called the sort of like the guild of realized beings, And so from there, Buddhas and Bodhisattvas are supposed to be the most successful people. They have joined the highest club, and they know what everything is about. They're supposed to know how everything is supposed to function. And from that group, the historical being, Shakyamuni Buddha, is supposed to be the most successful one. But if you really examine his life story, then sure, he was able to perform miracles here, there. He was able to become some form of a hero there and here. But nevertheless, at the end of the day, just like ourselves, he got old, he got sick, and he died, And if you know how to look at that, it's actually very profound, I think. Just because we are successful doesn't mean that we can have one extreme aspect of something or anything going on forever. And so therefore, to see that the so-called most successful being actually accepts and embraces these process of life is very, very humbling, and I think that's probably for us as Buddhists, let's say, those of us who feel that somehow we are Buddhist, I think it's a very important part to reflect on. And it's very humbling, not in a very pious and religious way, or modest way, but truly humbling. That it's all right to accept these process of life. So, in that manner, in that approach, I wish for all of us nothing more, nothing less than for us to have the time and opportunity together to experience these process of life in a meaningful way, not in a negative way, also not in a positive way. There is no such thing, I think. So I wish, that's what I truly wish for all of us. Then now, since today is the conclusion day, there's not much room for my gibberish, and at the same time there is probably it makes more sense for us to focus on the practice itself. So I will once again, with great delight, we will meditate on this sadhana of Chenrezig. I really don't know how actually the sadhana is supposed to be received actually. Whether we are supposed to receive according to the mantrayana or tantrayana way, whether we are supposed to receive some form of initiation before or not. But one thing is for sure, is that we have to have a general understanding of refuge and the generating of bodhicitta. That's for sure. These are very, very essential preparations, foundations, ground for any form of let's say Buddhist sadhana. And of course accordingly we have within the formula to somehow verbally go through those stages, and of course we are somehow expected to also through the chanting we are expected to somehow observe and practice and most importantly embrace these sets of practices. Basically the practice of refuge and the practice of generating of the Bodhisattva's aspiration and application. The point, of course, the point here is that it has to be, if possible, extremely genuine. That's the thing. And how can we do that? That's the hardest part, I think. How can we do it genuinely? How can we genuinely develop refuge? How can we genuinely develop bodhicitta? Even at, let's say, gunpoint, let's say, will we be able to genuinely develop those attitudes? Of course, there's no guarantee, because at the end of the day it has to happen by itself, sort of thing. But whenever we say that, or someone says that, or even when I say this right now, it's not for us to somehow again form a kind of feeling, that notion that everything will be taken care of by itself, either by someone or something, and so therefore we can completely leave it all up to chance, sort of thing. That's also not exactly the point. But naturally, in a way, that within the external world there are countless of things that are happening, whether they are man-made, whether they are non-man-made. They are all forms of occurrences that doesn't necessarily have to be supervised, organized, and controlled, actually, but they are always happening, you know. But at the same time, we are extremely closely and intimately connected with all of those occurrences. So such as, for example, breathing, walking, sleeping, all forms of interactions that is happening within our physical body right here, right now, everything, you know. All of those are happening very harmoniously and naturally. At the same time, we are, of course, part of it. We are connected to it. And the attitude of taking refuge and the attitude of generating bodhicitta is supposed to be, well, supposed to be, that's a very interesting word, but supposed to be actually identical with those processes. And yeah, that's the challenge, I think. In terms of, it could be a musician, it could be a technician, it could be an artist, those who have perfected whatever forms of art that they have trained themselves into, of course. They are, of course, very comfortable in their craft. And in the same way, in terms of practitioners or meditators, there are many who are very comfortable in their field, and when we look at them, of course, at some point it's inspiring. At the same time, it's how to say, amazing in a way. But I don't know whether it is the language barriers, whether it is some form of trauma, I don't know. Whether it is a very gentle kind of trauma or a very severe kind of trauma, I don't know. For some reason, although we every day, almost on an everyday level, we do see these individuals, or let's say nature, you know, not necessarily someone but something, performing these various forms of what looks like miracles almost, which are beautiful. For example, a beautiful sight, a beautiful breeze, a wonderful aroma, anything, or someone being very, very kind or very generous. When we see that, and when we see that those things are being either performed or either they happened so naturally, you know, that that you cannot really feel that as if there was a plan behind, you know, some form of a conspiracy behind, but they all happened very naturally. When we see that, obviously it's inspiring, but there is something, of course, in us that somehow blocks us from thinking that either I cannot do that, or to somehow disregard that by thinking that this is just one of those things that happens where you really have no real connection with. And so therefore there's this sense of feeling that we are separated from it, you know. And so because of those habits, of course, in a traditional sense, as we say, due to ignorance, due to habitual pattern over the course of time, whether we call it repetitions that took place over many, many rebirths, and obscurations that took place, or that sort of keeps occurring and at the same time goes unchecked over many, many repetitions. Those are the traditional way of interpreting it. But to put it in a very everyday format is that for some reason, for I don't know for what, that there is some kind of, I don't know, pride, ego, I don't know what it is. Of course, pride not necessarily doesn't mean that we think that I am better than someone else. It could be just the case that I am worse than someone else, you know. It varies. I mean, there is no real limit. Sky is the limit, as they say, is true. That the kind of ego that we all have through each cycle is just limitless, you know. One day we think we are the one, in terms of we are as close to a living God sort of thing. And the next day we think we are the villain, you know. And for some strange reason, as we try to identify with each of those different aspects of ego or pride, we feel somehow comfortable with that unique position, you know, that we are different from the rest. Anyway, to come back to the point is that the reason why it's so difficult to really identify what is the meaning of taking refuge in the so-called Buddha, Dharma and Sangha, or the triple gem, and generating this strange attitude is, due to all of these very strange forms of ego. And so therefore we feel that because if we follow word by word, if you follow sentence by sentence, and according to its grammar, whether it's Tibetan or whether it's translated into your language, that somehow such attitudes of the Bodhisattva suggest that you have to be extremely humble, modest, kind, generous, and so on. And so therefore somehow they contradict with what we have been feeling so far. And so therefore it's extremely difficult, extremely challenging, as it was said at the Thanksgiving today, to meditate. And that's what makes it challenging, I think, to meditate on Genesic I don't know, but it's possible that there are many of you here who hate Chinese practice. Really. Um, it's and you ask yourself, why on earth are you here? Spending that much of energy, time to be here in this cold and rugged place, and to put up with delicious foods, of course, spicy and delicious food, which most likely don't really agree with your digestive system. And on top of it, we don't know whether to call it